Welcome, Dr. Suresh.
At university, absolutely piled the weight back on, just absolutely crazy. Just the lifestyle was terrible. Just really struggled, depression. At that point, I remember that what I was feeling was I would have diagnosed it as depression. And I realized that I'm just overeating a lot. My problem was always my relationship with food was terrible. Terrible. Basically, going to get heart disease. I'm going to get diabetes. Honestly, I'd given up at that point. And that's embarrassing to say as a doctor. Why do babies violently refuse vegetables?
Yeah.
Violently, like throwing
Instincts.
them across the
Strong
room.
instincts, right?
It's pure instinct. They do not know right or wrong. They don't know naughty or nice. They're not being badly behaved. It's pure instinct. And I heard Dr. Anthony Chaffee talk. And he started talking about the carnivore diet. So basically started just basically ribeye. The Monday morning I woke up, I felt like Superman. I felt like Superman on steroids. I felt like a god. Like, what is this? And I'd done keto and stuff before and like fasting. And this was just like a whole nother level, a whole nother plane of existence virtually. Like, how do I feel this good? I just thought I've got to research this.
Hello and welcome. Care to hear from Healing Humanity, the Power of a Proper Human Diet. And today I'm thankful, grateful, and blessed to have Dr. Suresh on the channel. Welcome, Dr. Suresh. How's it going?
Thank you, Kerry. Very good. Thank you. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Looking forward to talking to you some more. I've been watching some of your YouTube content. I'll have a link in the description for everything you're doing over there. Maybe if we could we start out? Could you just tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe your professional background as well?
Absolutely. So I live in Australia at the moment, 40 years old, and yeah, I've been a doctor for basically about 20 years now, medical school and a doctor, so quite a bit of experience. And I actually found, kind of carnivore pretty much about 2 years ago now, almost to the day actually. And but low carb and keto a long time before that. And I think like everybody, I've had my own personal health journey, like yourself as well, Kerry. And I think most of the doctors that do this kind of work, that I'm doing now, people like Ken Berry, Sean Baker, Dr. Anthony Chaffee, these kind of people, they all have the health story. They don't just kind of come out of medical school go, you know what, I'm going to go carnivore and tell all my patients about it. It just doesn't happen like that. And usually there's a story behind it, often a personal health story, sometimes maybe like a family friend or something as well, that they've seen maybe some changes and then it's kind of opened their eyes to maybe just the wider world perhaps of medicine. And so that's, really been my journey over the last 40 years or so, struggling with my own personal health problems. Obesity certainly was a big one. I've always been basically obese from as early as I can remember, and looking back at photos and everything, certainly my adult years, I was much more obese than I was as a child. But I remember as a child being, the only kid in the class, basically the only boy in the class that had boobs. I think my boobs were bigger than most of the girls, to be honest, at that point. And at least that was my recollection. And that age, you're extremely self conscious, and that was that was 30 years ago. That was back in the day before social media, and all this other stuff as well. And I remember being extremely self conscious. And I remember actually one particular episode, I was at the annual kind of school swimming event in kind of secondary in primary school actually. It was like the end of primary school, year six. So I must have been about 11, 12 years old. And I remember being extremely self-conscious because I was just, my swimsuit and basically in front of, like 300 people, I remember just kind of sitting there, just kind of like covering my boobs up basically because I was just so overweight. But I didn't know what to do about it. And when I tried to do things about it, my parents actually, I love them to bits, but they kind of gave me the wrong advice. They gave me the advice they thought was right. Like a lot of parents, don't worry, it's just puppy fat, it'll go away, and it's fine to be overweight, it's not a problem. Don't eat too much protein, don't eat eggs, they'll raise your cholesterol. Just eat salads and this kind of thing. At the same time as, we had like a weekly pizza night, which was just, store bought pizza from the supermarket, pie. Friday night was like fish and chips night. Wednesday night was pie night. And I had no idea back then, of course, what that food was doing to me. I don't think they had any idea what the food was doing to us either as a family. Because my siblings were all pretty slim. Actually, I got the unlucky genes, I think, in the family. And then of course they go through to high school, everything. Yeah, look, puberty hit. I did lose some weight, of course, slim down a little bit. Uh, but then basically put the weight back on. Went to university. Started drinking as everyone does. As at university, absolutely piled the weight back on. Just absolutely crazy. Just the lifestyle was terrible. And then basically just really struggled, went through, never really diagnosed, but probably depression. At that point, I remember that what I was feeling was I would have diagnosed it as depression in someone else. So, and I'm sure the diet, everything just fed into that lifestyle because I was just eating takeaways every day and just, drinking and really not having a good life. And this was being a medical student. I should have known better, but they don't teach you these things in medical school. They really don't teach you how to look after yourself at all. They don't teach you how to really be healthy. They just kind of teach you how to pass your medical exams. And I remember then getting towards the end of medical school and thinking, you know what? Like I'm really unwell. I'm really unhealthy. I'm not mentally there. I'm physically unhealthy. I need to make a change. If I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it because I looked forward, to my future. And I thought, you know what? Like I'm going to be busy. I'm going to be working full time. Hopefully at some point might have a family, have kids and so on. I need to do this now or I'm never going to get time to do it. And my health is just going to deteriorate. My dad had at that point already a couple of heart attacks. He had diabetes. I was diagnosed with diabetes. Mum had high blood pressure, no heart disease or diabetes, but loads in the family, absolutely loads. And so, I was staring down the barrel of just this really poor health, thinking I really need to make a change. And I did. And I didn't really know what I was doing at all. I went on to, bodybuilding websites, and all this stuff. And nothing really overly helped. But I eventually just decided, you know what, I'm just going to pretty much just eat salmon and rice for like 3 months. And I don't know why I just did salmon and rice and I just exercised, pretty much twice a day on that. And I lost an absolute ton of weight. I'm not sure I got healthy, but I lost a ton of weight. And I remember going back to kind of, after medical school and we all kind of, as a year group got together for like pre-work meetings and stuff, kind of pre-graduation and so on. And basically everyone was kind of looking like no one recognized me because I was so obese. And then I came in as just like, basically I went from like extra, extra large shirts down to like small, almost extra small. And I'm sure I lost a ton of muscle, everything. But people, honestly, they were asking like if I had cancer and,
Mm.
like it was actually quite shocking. But I felt good, and so on. Fast forward, another 20 years or so. And, the weight just kind of piled back on because I just didn't know what I was doing. And all this time I was, trying to be healthy, but didn't know what I was doing. I was trying to help patients, didn't really know what I was doing there. And so from an early age, early on in my medical career, I learned, there's more actually to health than just medications. And I was lucky. I also had some good teachers through my medical kind of training and my postgraduate, training as a doctor who actually instilled in me quite early on the idea of stopping medications, which was actually unheard. I remember the conversation. We were on a ward round, looking at patients. I was just a, kind of fresh faced junior doctor at this point, barely out of medical school. And the registrar, like the level just kind of below, this was back in England. So slightly different levels to, Australia and America, but just below the kind of like senior consultant specialist. And she said to me, what about, stopping these medications? And I said, what do you mean stopping? You don't stop medications. And she said, of course you do. Why would you carry on medications that aren't working? Why would you carry on medications that are not helping someone? Why are you prescribing things that are not really helpful? And I was really taken aback. And okay, that's like no one's ever said this to me in like 6 years, 7 years for me, medical school. No one's ever said anything about stopping medications. It was always just start, 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 like the next
Right.
medication, the next medication. And so that would just kind of triggered something in me. I just, oh, okay, that's really interesting. Like I need to learn more about, maybe stopping medications. But the problem is that you're in the whole system, and the system doesn't really do that. The system is just prescribe more medications, do more surgeries, prescribe more medications. We'd get the dietitian to come round, and inevitably, they'd just say, "Oh yeah, like just eat more calories, go and have these like sustenance drinks and things, which are just like basically seed oils." No one ever got any more healthy from seeing a dietitian at the hospital. And then like the diabetic, kind of eating plans were just like fruit juices. And, it's just like, oh my God, like now I'm just, oh my God, like that was just shocking. But back then I didn't know any better. Eventually, through my career, I became a GP. I found like low carb, again, really from my own personal health journey. Nobody ever talked to me about this in terms of my training, teaching. You go to all these like update courses every year, and they just keep telling you the same thing. Just prescribe, prescribe, prescribe. Like here's the latest medications. You just start this new medication, start that new medication. No one ever said anything about stopping medications. It was just prescribe new, new, new all the time, adding, adding, adding. So I found low carb to try and help myself. That helped, certainly. It did help a lot, but not enough. And I struggled to stick with it for various reasons. And then I found keto as an extension of low carb. That was great, but again, struggled to stick with it. I'm talking like years on and off of these things. And then fasting was great.
Quick interruption. Did you know we have an incredible membership site for you called healinghumanity.life? We have a special offer going on right now. Learn more at the link in the description. We have courses. We have expert Q&As with the good doctors. We even have a Healing Humanity Heroes Zoom call once a week, highlighting real heroes that will inspire you on a path to healing. The community is wonderful. We're going to be implementing a buddy system so you can be held accountable, recipes, all sorts of great stuff to help you on a path to healing. Learn more at the link in the description below.
I used to think fasting was stupid. But then I found intermittent fasting, decided to do it, and that was a big game changer for me actually, because it helped to keep the weight off. And I realized that I'm just overeating a lot. My problem was always my relationship with food was terrible. Terrible. It's still not fantastic, but it's better than it was. And so intermittent fasting was great, but again, it didn't last. I think like everything, it kind of just ended up abusing it, probably, doing too hard, too quickly, burning out, not realizing what I was really doing. Because again, there's very little help and guidance out there. And this was mostly back in the day. YouTube's been around for a long time, but prior to people like yourself, obviously really sharing these things, and there was no real doctors or anything to turn to, that kind of stuff that I was aware of anyway. And then I pretty much found myself again, age 38, 2 years ago, staring down the barrel like I did 20 odd years ago. Just, man, like this is my life now. Like I'm basically going to get heart disease. I'm going to get diabetes. I honestly, I'd given up at that point. And that's embarrassing to say as a doctor, because I was telling people to, try and be healthy, go low carb, go keto, do fasting. Like I was telling them all those things, but I wasn't, I was talking the talk, but I wasn't walking the walk. And I looked really unhealthy. Like I was almost round, like just in every direction. Shocking when I look at photos now of what I was like. And that was only maybe, 3, 4 years ago now. And I was staring down the barrel. Honestly, I'd given up. And I just said, it's too hard. I can't do this yo-yo anymore. I can't do this roundabout, this merry-go-round of diet and health culture, trying to get healthy, getting healthy, or at least losing weight, what I thought was healthy. And then just, going round and round in circles every time, getting worse every time. It was like two steps wasn't even 2 steps forward, 1 steps back. I think it was 1 step forward, 2 steps back every time because I was just screwing my body, screwing my metabolism with all these kind of diet yo-yo things. And I'd just given up. Honestly, I'd resigned myself to just being on those medications, being that person who ends up on like 35 medications. It's sad. I've seen patients on that many meds. It's really sad. But I didn't see a way out. I knew what to do. I couldn't do it. It's too hard. And then I went to Low Carb Down Under, which is a conference here in Australia, and I heard Dr. Anthony Chaffee talk, and his plants are trying to kill you. And I looked at it on the thing, and I thought, okay, that's interesting. Like, I've got to see this. Like, this is interesting. And he started talking about the carnivore diet, and I'd actually heard about it a couple of years prior. And this was, back in the day, I was actually quite unhealthy. And one of my patients came in and said, "Look, I want to do this crazy diet." And I said, "Yeah, what diet is it?" He said, "Oh, it's called a carnivore diet." And I said, "What the heck's a carnivore diet?" I didn't know about people like you, like Ken Berry, Sean Baker, Chafee. I didn't know about any of these people back then. I was just in my own little sad world of trying to be healthy but failing horribly. And I remember basically saying to him, like, "Dude, you're gonna die. Like, you can't do this. Like, what is wrong with you? You're gonna die." And I literally said, like, "You need to just like, I don't want any part of this. Like, you need to leave my office." Like, I was probably quite rude actually. I hope I wasn't too rude, but he's still my patient, so I probably wasn't that rude. And he basically just said, "No, like, I'm not leaving. Like, you're my doctor. Like, you're helping me with this, and you're gonna see the benefits, and then you can maybe think about doing it yourself." Because I mean, I looked unhealthy. I'm not surprised he called me out on it. And he did it. And I resisted a lot, but he was just like, "No, you're it. Like, I'm not going anywhere. And I want to be safe, want to get some bloods and all the rest of it." So we did. And the profound difference for him was just remarkable. Absolutely remarkable, truly remarkable. In like a week, he just was so much healthier, lost loads of weight, just felt amazing. His bloods were all improved, like just and I was just really shocked. A, he didn't die, and B, because fat's bad and so on. And fat and meat is going to kill you, of course. So and basically he was just super healthy. All of his problems pretty much disappeared. And yeah, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't rationalize this with my just medical training, everything. It was just no, like you can't be healthy. Like this doesn't make sense. It's just some freak. Like you just cut out junk food or something. Like there's no way. And so I didn't accept it. Even what was right in front of my eyes, I could not accept it. And so I went to this talk by Dr. Chafee, and then carnivore diet. Oh, I've heard about that one before. Oh yeah, my patient did really well on that. Oh, okay. Well, maybe like now there's a doctor talking about it. Maybe this is a thing. Maybe this is something I could try. Maybe I could get behind this. Maybe this is my last attempt. This is it. Like this is the one thing. If this doesn't work, like that's it. Like I'd basically given up at that point anyway. So I came home. I said to my wife, uh, "What do you think about doing this?" And she said, "Look, you're basically fat and unhealthy anyway." I mean, I love her, but she's brutal sometimes. And we're still together. And she said, "Look, you're basically staring down the barrel. You've got bad genes in your family, like all of this stuff. Just do it. You like eating meat, and you've done keto and stuff before. Like, just do it. See if it works for you." And so I did it. I actually didn't go back for the second day of the conference because I was so excited to just get started. I just kind of went to the shops and just bought loads of meat and I actually skipped the second day of the conference. I checked it first to see if there was anyone else like talking about carnivore, and there wasn't. So I was like, okay, I'll skip that second day. And I just started eating meat. Did some research, did some Googling, and found some guides and stuff. And basically just, yeah, like, why not? I'll just do it. Bought some ribeyes and things, and I think that's what I started with. And then 36 hours. So basically started pretty much essentially the Saturday evening. That was my dinner, just basically ribeye. the Monday morning I woke up, I felt like Superman. Like, I felt like Superman on steroids. Like, I felt like a god. It's just like, I mean, you probably know, it's so hard to describe. I just felt like I woke up and just like, "What the hell has changed? Like, what is this?" And I just felt and I'd done keto and stuff before and like fasting, and this was just like a whole nother level, a whole nother plane of existence virtually. And I just thought, "What the hell is this magic? Like, how do I feel this good?" And I just thought I've got to research this. And so I went and researched, bought, Dr. Baker's book, listened to some people, and yeah, that was it. I was like, this is what I'm doing now. Like, I'll just carry on until I can't carry on anymore. And then I'll address it and see what happens. But then I thought, you know what? Like, if it doesn't work, I'll just amend it. I won't quit. I'll just amend it slightly, which was a total difference from fasting and keto and all the rest of it. That was like all or nothing. This was like, no, this is it now. I just will make some adjustments, if it doesn't work. But I woke up and like my hands didn't hurt for the first time in about 10 years. My hands didn't hurt. So right down here at the base of my thumb, I have, really bad pain. If I press it too hard, it still hurts, but that pain had gone, like just completely gone. And I just resigned myself to it's rheumatoid arthritis, because my mum has exactly the same area of pain. And I thought maybe this is rheumatoid arthritis or something. Just this is it, just eventually not going to be able to grip anything, open a jar, like whatever it is. But that pain was gone, just gone, like completely gone. My mental clarity, my energy was just amazing. I'd already lost some weight. Just felt unbelievable. My back pain had gone. I've been plagued with back pain for years. My knee pain had gone. And I remember running in the supermarket because I had to run back and grab something from the cheese or butter or whatever it was. And I ran back to the aisle and ran back to the counter because my wife was there waiting to pay. And I got to the counter and hang on, my knees don't hurt. Like, my knees haven't not hurt for like 20 years with running. Like, how do my knees not hurt now? And slowly, all these things just started to kind of just appear, like just or disappear, I suppose. These amazing benefits, the things that I just had for 10 or 20 years, this pain and just feeling terrible, just all completely gone. And that was it. That was just, and I haven't looked back since. That was pretty much 2 years ago. And the benefits have just been, yeah, unbelievable for me and my patients. So I then started taking it. I did a lot of research because I wanted to take this to my patients. And I was doing low carb and keto and stuff anyway with them. So it wasn't that much of an extension, but it's a pretty big shift, even from keto. And keto it's still not even widely accepted in the medical community. It's still seen as a bit fringe. It's still seen as a bit crazy. Too much fat's going to kill you and, all this stuff. And so I did more research, slowly started introducing it to patients, just, testing the waters a little bit, with people. Cause I was, okay, I was like, oh, there's this like crazy diet people are talking about, not knowing that people have been doing it for 20 odd years, some people. And that, yeah, basically just since then I've been offering it to my patients and the ones that take it up almost just universally, really, really amazing changes, maybe with some tweaks here and there. But the difference is just absolutely incredible. Yeah.
Mm. Powerful story, man. That's incredible. I love hearing the superhuman thing because I had that same experience and
Yeah.
it was you described it perfectly. That's how it was. It's like this is like another level. I remember thinking about Dr. Chafee too because I was watching a lot of his videos and I'm like, he's basically like human 2.0 or something. He's operating at another level, and that's what I'm feeling here now for the first time. You mentioned a lot of things that really resonate with me. One thing you said was the yo-yo dieting. I felt like I held the world record for gaining and losing, and trying all these different things. Do you have any thoughts on like a ketogenic low carb diet and addiction versus carnivore? Because I feel like that's kind of one of the differences that I didn't realize until I started doing carnivore.
Yeah, that was a big difference for me. So I have definitely been plagued with sugar addiction most of my life, food addiction, I think, just in general. I'm still perhaps a bit of a binge eater, but carnivore suits me there because it is possible to, I think, to overeat on carnivore, but it's pretty hard to overeat on carnivore. But my relationship with food has very much changed now. I'm much more in control of food rather than food being in control of me. And I've learned a heck of a lot in that time frame, but not just me. I mean, there's a more just kind of generic, there's a very big shift with the carnivore diet. And I think this is down to addiction and dopamine and how sugar, it affects the brain. We know sugar can be highly addictive. There are studies suggesting that it may be more addictive than things like cocaine. We know it can affect the brain in or similar pathways in the brain, I should say, maybe more accurately to things like meth, amphetamine. So we know it can be highly addictive, and sugar and a lot of the keto, kind of snacks, keto treats, low carb stuff, artificial sweeteners, this kind of thing, which a lot of people are turning to on keto, they still kind of continue this addiction, this sugar addiction, this sweetness addiction. People think it's a sugar addiction. It's not necessarily a sugar addiction, it's a sweetness addiction and a dopamine addiction. Because when we eat sugary foods, when we eat sweet foods, even artificial sweeteners, they trigger these kind of centers in the brain. They trigger this dopamine release, and dopamine is then, the more dopamine we get, the more the brain wants to get the same effect. So we end up in this vicious cycle, then wanting more sweetness and sugar, and then we get more dopamine. We get more dopamine, so we need more dopamine. We need more dopamine, so we get more sugar, and we end up in this vicious cycle going around and around. And so a lot of people, when they go low carb, they go keto. And I was in this situation. I remember doing coffees with like two sweeteners in, and these sweeteners were like, 300 times as sweet as sucrose. And it's like, God knows what I was doing to my body with these things. And I think that just continued the whole addiction. And I was always the kind of the cheat guy. I'd find the way to, or the loophole guy. That's what I call myself. I'd always find the loophole, like on low carb. I'd be like, I can just be kind of low carb. I can be lowish carb, like I can be low carb today and then okay, normal tomorrow. Keto, I'd start out like, yeah, I'm going to do like hardcore keto. And then by the end of it, I'd be like, 50 grams is still keto. Like 70 grams is maybe still keto. Like I'd always find a way to kind of bump it back up again. I think that was the addiction. With the difference with the carnivore diet, taking out, because I went pretty hardcore with the carnivore as well. So if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. Yeah, I'm going to do it all in. And which I always did, but this time it has worked out well. Um, you get rid of all those sugary foods. You get rid of all the sodas, the Coke Zeros, all these artificial sweeteners, like everything. Literally, I just ate beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. That was literally it. All I ate. Like no and salt. Like no herbs, no spices, like nothing. That dopamine just melted away, absolutely melted away. And so all the cravings just disappeared very, very quickly as well, along with that dopamine. And this is interesting because I know Sean Baker talks about it in his book. I've definitely seen this as well with my patients and with myself, actually. Other addictive behaviors is disappearing, which is really fascinating. And I think it's all the dopamine thing. People don't, there's theories around why. I think it's the dopamine effect here. Now, fatty meat will give you some dopamine, but nowhere near what sugary foods will. And when the brain is having that dopamine kind of cycle, it wants more dopamine. And so smoking and alcohol, gambling, all these things, these dopamine, kind of behaviors actually will carry on. So if you can get rid of some of that dopamine in food, actually it's a big driver towards making change in other areas, which is absolutely fantastic for some people. I saw this with myself. I have, or had, maybe have, I don't know, a bit of a not gambling addiction, gaming addiction, computer games, a particular computer game. And this has caused me issues for the last 20 odd years. And every time I think I'm free of it, I end up going back to it, eventually just drawn back. And I remember when I started the carnivore diet, there was a new expansion coming out for the game. And I was like, oh, I'm going to get this, like, super excited, but also just terrified at the same time because I knew that I knew I was addicted. And I didn't want to play this game, but it's addiction, you can't help yourself. And went carnivore. And then like pretty much the next day, I was just like, yeah, I don't want to play this anymore. It's just like a light switch. Like someone had just turned off this light switch. Just I know I can't be bothered. Like something just changed in me. It was absolutely fascinating. And so I just put the game down, stopped playing. Basically had like 2 years, away from the game. Did go back to it a little bit, actually. Interestingly, when I went on timing wise, probably when I went on the animal based diet, actually, Paul Saladino's animal based, I tried that for a little while and introduced sugar and things again. And then I found myself going back to the game. Interesting. I didn't actually realize that until I've just said that. The timing, interesting. Went back off that, back more towards carnivore. Again, I'm off the game and yeah, not playing it. So there's definitely something with carnivore and dopamine, I think it is, when it comes to addictions, for sure. I've seen this repeatedly.
Yeah, I have too. I'm really glad you mentioned that. I think we've interviewed 34 people for a documentary, probably like 100 people I've interviewed on my YouTube channel. So many have said the same thing. Uh, Gaming, gambling, soda, cigarettes, chewing tobacco. It's like you get rid of all of your addictions when you
Mm,
get carnivore. It's it's interesting. There's so many things like this that happen that are sort of uncharted territory, but you hear it, I hear it, so it's definitely happening. But it's like we need more info on that thing. It's really sort of liberating not having any addictions. I realized that on carnivore for myself. I'm like, I'm not addicted to anything anymore. Now you could argue ribeyes, right? But for me, it's not an addiction. It's more of an appreciation. It's not like jonesing for a ribeye like I used to for sugar or carbs. Like I got to
yeah.
get my fix kind of thing.
Mm. I think the difference there with me, like I definitely, I'm not addicted to, steaks or anything there, but I've learned to listen to my body and what my body's telling me. And so I do get cravings for some food here and there, but I know why. And then I can rationalize that, So it's like, oh, I'm desperate for prawns tonight. Okay, maybe my iodine's dropping a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, have some iodine, get some prawns, fine, no problem. I'm just like at the moment, I'm just like I'm kind of dropping off the carbs a tiny bit again because I do a little bit of carbs here and there, and I've noticed that my body's just really wanting fat, like really wanting fat now. So I must be going much more back in again, like into keto and so on. And my body just wants that fat. And now like cold fat, like the cold steak, just eating the fat, like the ribeye, just the cold face. It's just like, oh my God, it's like heaven.
It's really incredible. That's one thing I love with carnivore is you can really listen to your body much better than I ever could. When I was eating a standard American diet, there's too much input, right? There's too much noise in
Yeah.
there to figure out what's going on. But now my body's like, yes, more fat or more sodium, more salt. You can really hear it. Uh, so a big turning point for you was Dr. Chafee and plants are trying to kill you. Do you have any thoughts on plants and vegetables? It's a big argument I get from a lot of people on carnivore. What's so bad? Just eat some plants, eat it in moderation. It can't be that bad for you. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean it's a really good question, and this is something that obviously comes up a lot. This is something that I struggled with initially, with the idea of just eating meat, 24/7. It's an interesting thing because my training, of course, is plants are amazing. Plants are really good. Vegan diet's really good. Not just my undergraduate, but my postgraduate. So I'm a board certified lifestyle physician as well, here in Australia through the International Board of Lifestyle Medicine. But they're very heavily influenced by the American board, who are basically vegan. And the Mike McGregor, you probably know Dr. Mike McGregor. He is pretty much like leading the American, Institute of Lifestyle Medicine. He's a very big vegan proponent, and like even my postgrad training, and so on is like, plants are amazing and so on. But I did that because I wanted to have some sort of credentials to say like I can do some of this lifestyle work. Not wanting to give people plants and so on too much, but my training was always, like plant heavy. It's probably really good, but then I went carnivore and I was like, okay, like I feel amazing. Well, there's a mismatch here. Like what I'm being told and what fits with reality is actually not the same thing. There must be a mismatch here. And so, you go through, look at the research and so on. I mean, pretty much all the research actually is in plants being good is epidemiological research. There's a few to no randomized control trials with these things. And if there is, really all they do is take out junk food and then say, eat more vegetables, and then people get better. And it's like, okay, well, is it the vegetables or are you just not eating junk food anymore? Which we know is terrible for people's health. But then also, you look at then, things like just breast cancer, for example. I mean, there's women, young women now, very young women getting breast cancer who are completely healthy. They've got no risk factors. They don't smoke, they don't drink, they're not overweight, yet they get breast cancer. There's no family history, yet they get breast cancer. Why are they getting breast cancer if they're so healthy? Why are vegans the most nutritionally deficient people on the planet? Like that doesn't make sense. If plants are so nutritious, why do vegetarians and vegans have the highest rates of, kind of nutritional deficiencies? Why do vegan diets have a higher risk of things like miscarriage and, genetic mutations, in utero? And that evidence comes from, there was a big systematic review, I think, out of Germany, I think about maybe 10, 20 years ago. And they basically said, there was, they have the highest rates of nutritional deficiencies and birth defects out of any population. And if plants are so nutritious, like how does that even make sense? It doesn't fit with reality. And so then you take the plants out and everything gets better, and you're like, okay, that's interesting. But it's actually logical because plants have toxins, plants have poisons, and they use these poisons to defend themselves. Because animals, like you and I, we have kinetic defense. Cows, sheep, whatever, they have kinetic defense. They can run away, they can kick, they can bite, they can scream, and whatever else. If something tries to eat them, something tries to kill them. Plants can't. They just basically sit there and die. But they don't want to die. They're alive. Everything that's living wants to stay living, basically, and reproduce. That's the point of life. Biological point of life anyway. So they have these toxins to defend themselves. And we know this is true because you can't just go into the forest and eat random whatever because you'll probably die. Like there's only a few, we eat less than 10% of the world's vegetation is edible for humans. And we eat less than 1% of the world's vegetation. If plants were so amazing, we would probably be more of that. So plants have these toxins, and toxins affect us. Maybe not in ways we understand, but they will all affect us. And there's going to be levels of that, of course. You go and eat deadly nightshade, you'll die. But you can eat like a spinach and you probably won't die. But it's still got poison. It's still going to affect you in some way. You eat enough of that poison, it's going to cause you a problem. Just maybe back in the day, people weren't eating a lot of these poisons because we had no access to these foods all year round. Now we're shipping things in from everywhere, all year round, all season round, supermarkets, everything. There's nothing, locally grown and no seasonal produce, anything like that. So we're eating these things now with abandon. We're eating these things all year round. I think Dr. Bill Schindler was talking about this recently, saying that we've moved away from seasonal vegetation and so on to just all year round, and it's causing us issues. I know Sally Norton talks about this in her book, this oxalic acid syndrome in England. Every time rhubarb, season rolled around, people would get really sick with these weird things that no one could explain. And then when rhubarb season ended, they all went away. And it affected the English predominantly because they were drinking lots of tea and lots of tea all year round, which is very high in oxalates or oxalic acid. And so the rhubarbs, very high in oxalates as well, on top of that, was then causing them oxalate toxicity. And they were getting all these weird symptoms, but then they would just disappear again when rhubarb season ended because the oxalate load went down. But now we're just eating these things all year round. But logically, if we think about it, we've probably never really eaten that many plants, actually. And, humans are designed to be carnivores. Our stomach pH is that of a scavenger. We know this is true. We have canine teeth. Yes, we don't have big, large fangs, but we don't hunt with them. So we don't need big, large fangs. We don't need big, large claws and so on to have these things. But we have a lot of, predatory otherwise features. And look at, nitrogen studies, stable isotope studies. We know we ate a diet consistent of at least 70% meat, likely very fatty meat. Food, carbs are not plentiful all year round. If I went out, like if you go out into the forest right now, what are you going to find to eat?
Right.
Yeah, you're going to hunt. There's no vegans in the wild. They're all dead. Like you're gonna hunt. You're gonna hunt, and you're gonna hunt big animals. You're not gonna hunt a mouse. Like you're gonna hunt a big animal, If you come across a mouse or chicken or something, you'd probably eat it because you're starving, but you're going to carry on. You're going to go and hunt a cow, a bison, deer, something like that, a big animal. You're going to find a salad. You're not going to find a cucumber. You might find some mushrooms, maybe, but are they even safe to eat? Most of them are not. Assuming you know which ones are, you might have a couple of mushrooms. How many mushrooms is there going to be that's edible? Two or three? I don't know. How many carrots are you going to find? Potatoes? Are you going to dig around in the ground, in the forest? Imagine the whole planet's covered in forest now. There's no civilization. Are you going to dig around randomly in the forest to find a potato?
Right.
No, you're not, because you probably die before you've even got one because you've used all your energy. Are you going to go foraging and nuts and you try and get like 3,000, 2.5, 3,000 calories on seeds. I don't think so. Like, you're gonna the toxins will kill you. Like a kilogram of almonds is enough cyanide to potentially kill an adult human. Nobody eats a kilo of almonds, but the idea that we just ate all these nuts and seeds and things, it just doesn't really fit with reality. And so actually, then when you take these things out, people get better. Then you look at the toxins and so on in these plants. You then look at the fact that we're not really biologically designed to eat these things. We don't have long colons anymore to ferment fiber. We have relatively short large bowels and relatively long short bowels, which I know is kind of the wrong way around. But this is designed, this is optimized for eating, protein and meat and fat, basically, not plant material, not fibrous plant material. And so we have, like 5 organs designed to deal with the consumption of pretty much protein and fat, basically meat. We have how many organs designed to deal with plants? I mean, like basically none. You take out the fiber, you take out plants, things like gut problems, irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's disease, colitis, all these things disappear very, very quickly.
Quick interruption. Thank you so much for watching. If you're interested in learning more about our documentary, Healing Humanity, The Power of a Proper Human Diet, or supporting it, please visit donate.healinghumanity.movie. Our goal is to reach millions of people that are hopeless right now, and sharing the examples of real people over the course of 1 year that are undertaking a proper human diet to overcome obesity, type 2 diabetes, depression, anxiety, fertility issues. We couldn't do it without you. We thank you so much. We are also selling these shirts, Healing Humanity, The Power of Proper Human Diet. Every penny we get from those goes towards the documentary. And last, we have memberships. If you click the little join button, it's best to do it on desktop. Under any one of my YouTube videos, you can join and become a member. We have hundreds of members right now. We do members only videos. We do members only behind the scenes. You can email me as a member and I'll answer you. And every penny from that goes to support the documentary. And the last thing is we have these Redmond's portable salt shakers. These things are awesome. You can get the best salt. You can take it with you. We sell these on the website along with our water bottles and cutting boards, and every penny from all of those goes 100% towards supporting the documentary. You can also sign up for our newsletter, which is completely free. All of these links are in the description below. Thank you so much for your support. Now back to today's video.
Surprisingly quickly. And so I think it's pretty obvious to anyone, if you look at the research, that we're not really designed to eat that many plants. You look at anyone that's actually doing this in reality, that takes these things out, these conditions get better. Again, it's pretty obvious. We're not really designed to eat that many plants. Maybe we would have eaten some occasionally, perhaps seasonal fruit, for example. I don't think we would have been eating that many vegetables, and certainly not grains and things like that, which we've only been eating for 10 to 15,000 years, not 4.5 million years of human evolution.
Right. Yeah, it's a great sort of thought experiment too, what you just said there. I think about like where I live, we got some trees, we got this, we get seasonal berries. It's like 2 weeks out of the year. I'm like,
Yeah.
and then it's winter here in Wisconsin for months, just brutal winter. I'm like, what would people have been eating?
Yeah.
I try not to go too overboard on it, but it's like plants have been put on such a high pedestal that people are eating them at every single meal, fruits at every single meal. Like you said, out of season, that is completely abnormal, like throughout mankind. Like this is a
Mm.
new phenomenon, just eating it all of the time over and over again. And the defense mechanisms a plant has is one thing. The other thing that I've been going down the rabbit hole on more is pesticides and glyphosate and what it does to our gut biome, gut bacteria. it's kind of a tricky area. Even some of the good doctors, they're like, we know very little about this right now. But I recently learned, I keep talking about this, I just find it fascinating, but glyphosate's like everywhere. 70% of the air and water tested in the United States has glyphosate in it now. And if you Google glyphosate, it's an antibiotic. So we're consuming or coming in contact with low levels of antibiotics, and a lot of it through these plants and fruits and vegetables over and over again for years and years and decades. And it's like, we don't really know what goes on in the gut biome, gut bacteria, but all disease starts in the gut, right? And serotonin's made in the gut, and there's immune system attached to the gut. There's like so much happening there. I almost think that that might be a bigger part of the puzzle as well. That's sort of uncharted territory, maybe on why we're doing so well on carnivores, the gut biome.
I think gut biome, yes, definitely plays a huge role. It's really interesting because a lot of people talk about gut microbiome, good or bad, and so on. Nobody knows what a good gut microbiome is. Nobody knows. There's a lot of conjecture there, and nobody really truly knows what a gut microbiome is meant to be. Because we're so far removed from what we're meant to be eating nowadays, so it's impossible to truly know. The gut is certainly very powerful, absolutely, and there's no doubt. Probably the majority of the world has leaky gut syndrome, and they're just absorbing so many toxins that are just wrecking their bodies. You used a term there. You think this might be the bigger part of the picture. I think it's a big part of the picture. I actually personally think the plant toxins are the bigger part of the picture. These natural pesticides, these natural herbicides, these natural poisons that we're actually consuming. I think those are actually the bigger part of the picture here. But certainly things like glyphosate and artificial pesticides, this is a really big problem. There's really no doubt. But the other thing is, just the natural pesticides, within the plant, but also, organic pesticides. And so, organic is kind of greenwashing term. People think they're pesticide free and there's no, whatever. Like we get like organic apples and stuff, for the kids, and they've still got like the wax coating on the outside. It's just an organic, wax. It's still doing something. It's still like an organic. It's just because it's organic doesn't mean it's safe.
Right.
You know, like you slap the word natural on it and the people think it's fine. I mean, like it's natural to be eaten by a lion if you stick your head in its mouth. It doesn't mean it's good for you.
Right. I'm glad you said that because that's a big misconception. I get the comment all the time. Well, I'm just eating organic, so there's no pesticides on it. I'm like, organic doesn't mean pesticide free. It just means it's not synthetic pesticides. And then
Yeah.
even if it didn't have any on it, there's so much overspray. I was just reading this study that said 60% of organic kale has glyphosate on it because it's just oversprays from the field next to it or the field next to it that's spraying pesticides on it as well, kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, there's so much there. You can go down all these rabbit holes on carnivore. My big sort of epiphany was I'm just doing what is most natural for humans, giving all the options by eating carnivore. I don't think you can get any more natural than eating a cow from a field that's grass fed, grass finished. I don't think you can get much cleaner than that. It seems like when you return to what's natural, everything sort of heals. Uh, so you had some good success with carnivore, and then you mentioned you went more a little meat based, Paul Saladino. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that worked out?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was carnivore, pretty strict carnivore for like 12 months. And I was like super strict carnivore, like completely zero carb, the Dr. Chafee approach, kind of zero carb for about 6 months. And I did a few experiments, here and there with like I just ate ribeye, just only ribeye for 30 days, see what happens. Because I just felt great when I ate ribeye. So I thought, yeah, why not? I'll just eat ribeye, like see what happens. I had some issues when I did that. I expected to have some issues. But otherwise I was, yeah, pretty strict carnivore for like 12 months. And I started to notice I just wasn't quite feeling as good as I was at the start towards the end of that year. And when you kind of go from feeling absolutely terrible to feeling, like a god amongst men, and then you're suddenly not feeling like that anymore, you notice that change. And I did some blood tests and things. I noticed some of my hormones were dropping a little bit. My testosterone was dropping a little bit. Libido was dropping a little bit. Yeah, still really good levels, but way higher than it used to be. My testosterone used to be just tanked. And keto actually helped with that, but carnivore even more so. Went up like 5 times on keto and carnivore. Crazy increase. I was so low before. And so I started looking into this and came across Paul Saladino. Of course, in the carnivore community, he's a bit ostracized, with his animal-based diet. But I looked into it. He was having similar issues. So I thought, you know what, why not? Like, I'm still going to stick to the principles, taking out the plant toxins, everything like that. But I'll see what happens. I'll put some fruit back in, some dairy, etc. I have to say, like, I mean, I felt totally different. I felt really good on the whole, almost the moment I added some carbs back in. But I went a bit crazy on it, and I part of just an experiment to see what happened, but also knowing I could just go back to carnivore and get healthy again if it went wrong. But also just to I thought, well, why not? I'm sure part of that was also a little bit of sugar addiction coming back in as well. And I ended up putting on quite a bit of weight actually. I was working out a lot because I had a lot more energy again, and I think I convinced myself it was all muscle. And I remember sending a message to Casey over at Boundless Body Radio, chat with him a little bit about this kind of stuff, and saying like, "Oh, dude, I've put on like 15 kilo, like 10 kilos, 15 kilos, like it's all muscle, whatever." I remember he was like, "Oh man, that's amazing," and I remember now. I think now like he was probably just like, "This guy's crazy. He's just not doing that at all. He's like freaking Arnold Schwarzenegger or something." And, of course, it was actually mostly probably just fat. I definitely put some muscle on, but I felt great. But then I was obviously a bit unhappy with my weight and so on. So I since backed off that, went back more towards the carnivore route. Lost a lot of the weight again, of course, still in process with that. But I think that journey was very useful for me to get a better sense of what carbs do to my body. Again, exploring sugar addiction and carb addiction, and then coming to a happy medium, to a happy place where I am just much more in tune with my body now. So, and thinking again logically about what is a proper human diet, what is a natural human diet. And I think that does include some seasonal carbohydrate. Like there's really not much of a question that humans ate some carbohydrates at some point throughout the year, just not a lot. As you said, maybe a couple of weeks of seasonal berries. That was it. And
Right.
that it wouldn't have been anything like we have nowadays. It was maybe 1 or 2% sugar, maybe 3% at most, not 10, 15% sugar like they are now. They were much smaller, a lot less sweeter, and so on. And of course, less contamination with glyphosate, as you mentioned, and so on. But I also think that, we would have eaten some glycogen in muscle meat because, fresh kill will have some glycogen in. It would take about a day to disappear. So anything we get from the supermarket, the butchers, anything like that, it's all gone. So it's zero carb now. But back in the day, we were eating fresh kills. It wouldn't have been completely zero carb. Maybe 10 or 20 grams of sugar a day. That would have been pretty much the limit, assuming you eat about a kilo of meat a day, which is roughly what I eat now. What's that, like 2.2 pounds? So I basically just eat now, yeah, like pretty much just meat, fat, and maybe a little bit of dairy. Like I'm okay with milk. Milk's okay with me. So I eat a little bit of dairy, a little bit of yogurt, handful of blueberries maybe every couple of days. That's pretty much it.
That's great. The Paul Saladino thing, I recently interviewed Dr. Ken Berry, and he's kind of the same approach. He's like, if there's seasonal fresh berries, I'll eat those every now and then. But I also asked him, I said, there's been a couple of people like Paul Saladino that advocate for bringing more stuff back. My thing for me is they always seem to be people that were never really obese like I was. Like Paul Saladino didn't kind of go through that. So I kind of asked Dr. Berry about that. And he's like, yeah, I couldn't really do that. Other than seasonal berries, like a little bit here and there, he's like, I couldn't do that because the sugar addiction or whatever, metabolism, I don't know what it is. So that's always been kind of my fear on that front. I've heard a couple carnivore people or influencers or doctors that do that. And they're usually the ones that weren't obese like me kind of thing. But
Yeah, I think maybe some people don't understand perhaps the dangers of carbohydrates if they haven't been there before themselves. I know Paul Saladino, of course, looks very good now. I don't know what he used to look like. I know he was vegan for a while, of course. I don't know if he was ever overweight or obese, but his level of carbohydrates is I think too high. Animal based, just in general. Like if you look at his calculators and stuff, it's not terrible. I mean, it's still a low carbohydrate diet actually for the most part for most people. And I've got plenty of patients who do really well on animal based rather than a strict carnivore because it's still taking out a lot of the bad stuff, but they're okay with the carbs, so it works for them. That's okay. That's great. But I think, yeah, perhaps people like you or I, like Ken Berry, we struggled with weight a lot of our lives. Yeah, those carbs are problematic, and we are probably better off without a large amount of them.
right? So, what about your friends, family, people around you, patients? How has your diet changed, affected others?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have. I've never really been one for huge amounts of friends, so that hasn't really caused too much of a drama there. I got lots of acquaintances, but look, I mean, I don't, push it on anyone. I don't. I used to talk about it a lot. I think, like a lot of people, you find this thing, like you get very zealous. You want to tell everyone about it,
Yeah.
just like the vegans, I'm sure. Um, but I learned quickly, people don't want to talk about their diet and stuff. If I'm invited to talk about it, I'll talk about it. Otherwise, I just keep my mouth closed really for people. But certainly, a lot of people thought I was crazy. A lot of people thought I was crazy. I had messages from people, like most of my friends are doctors, being from medical school and so on, saying like, dude, you're gonna die. Like same thing I said to that first patient, dude, you're gonna die. And like it's so unhealthy. Be really careful telling patients, this kind of thing. Family. So my wife, like I said, she was very supportive. Interestingly, I was saying to her the other day, actually, she tried like low carb and stuff. Like she just could never do low carb, even low carb. She couldn't do keto, like never low carb. Like her hormones and stuff just got screwed up. But now, after pretty much 2 years of me on this diet and in the household and so on, she's almost keto now. Like she's almost carnivore, actually. Almost. It's pretty much just like carnivore plus berries. That's pretty much what she eats. And the more she drops the carbs, like the more she's dropping some weight and stuff as well. So she hasn't got that much weight to drop, but like everyone, she wants to be a little bit slimmer. So I keep trying to say to her, like, maybe just, little bit more, a little bit less, a little bit less carbs, a little bit less carbs. My family, so my kids, they are again eat pretty similar to me. They're pretty much just maybe more animal based, perhaps than carnivore. Some fruit, some yogurt, dairy, cheese, butter, milk, meats, and then some berries. A little bit of vegetables here and there, but mainly root vegetables like carrots, for example. Very little. We don't really eat like potatoes, rice, pasta. Like these things don't exist in our household anymore. There's no junk food, like ever. They went trick or treating the other day for Halloween, and they got like one candy. They can eat, and then it's like maybe once a month we'll just okay, here's a bit of candy from your Halloween thing, and they're pretty cool with that because they also understand that these things are not healthy for them. They're actually pretty good with that. We've got 4 kids, 18 months now to up to almost 9. And, they understand that this is the food that we eat and it makes them healthy. And, they're pretty happy with that. They often, I think, tell their friends, like, oh, you need to eat more meat. And they compare each other's lunch boxes and everything, which is hilarious. The 18-month-old, like, he just knows what he wants. Like, you give him a T-bone or something, he just like chews on like we do like a tomahawk. We just give him the bone, and he just like chews the bone to bits. He loves it. He just absolutely sucks on the fat. He loves it. But it's an interesting thing. I say to a lot of people when I'm having these kind of conversations. If we look at kids, for example, when our baby Noah was weaning, he's basically the carnivore baby, and why do babies like violently refuse vegetables?
Yeah.
Violently, like throwing
Instincts,
them across the
strong
room.
instincts, right?
It's pure instinct. They do not know right or wrong. They don't know naughty or nice. They're not being badly behaved. It's pure instinct. They just violently refuse those vegetables. It's just like, it's poison. It doesn't look right. They know not to eat it. But you give them meat, oh my God, they go to town on that. Give them fat, they just suck on that fat all day long. They haven't even got any teeth. They're just gumming it to death. And, you give them some berries or something, they're all over that as well. And, it's a really interesting thing. I still get comments, from colleagues at work. They know now, 2 years, I pretty much just turn up with like a ribeye for lunch, or something, a cold bit of ribeye, like some sardines, oysters, whatever, like just never any junk food. I go to lunchtime meetings. I don't eat the sandwiches anymore, all this kind of stuff. They don't really say anything. They sometimes get some comments, but more just jokingly than anything else. But um, patients, Mixed reactions. Mixed reactions. I don't launch into it straight away because it's divisive.
Right.
And people will think you're kind of crazy because they've been told all their life that vegetables and plants are really good. You know, you must eat plants, and this idea of never eating plants actually is weird to them. But I frame it in the context, of the consultation. And if they're coming in like they just need a medical certificate or something, like they're off sick, whatever, it's like, okay, fine, here you go. Like, I wouldn't start talking to them about carnivore for that. If they come in with like really bad diabetes, high blood pressure, cancer, they've just aches and pains, everything hurts, which is most of my patients just feeling terrible. Then I'll talk to them about it. I'll say, look, actually, sugar can be quite dangerous. I don't sort launch straight into carnivore, but I say, look, sugar can be problematic. Plant toxins can be a problem. I explain the logic behind it as we've done today. And usually they're on board and say, yeah, look, I could give that a try. And then they usually end up just eating less carbs, less plants, more meat, more fat, inevitably feel better. Some go full on carnivore, some just go carnivore, but then go back to keto maybe. Some go a bit more animal based, but they all improve.
That's great. And this has been wonderful, Dr. Suresh. I can't believe it's been almost an hour already.
I know.
Can we I could talk to you for another hour on this stuff. Open invite too, by the way, if you ever want to come back on or do a live stream or something. But could you
Love
tell
to.
us a little bit more? People are going to want to learn more about you. Where can they find you? That sort of thing.
Yeah, so I've got a YouTube channel myself, at the Meat Medic, pretty much across all my social media platforms. The best place to find me is probably my website, themeatmedic.com. So MEAT, the Meat Medic. .com. That's probably the best place to find me. And like I said, across social media at the Meat Medic as well. I have a podcast, on YouTube, of course, an audio podcast as well. People can listen to that. A couple of podcasts actually, but and people can search for me there. Otherwise, then, anyone in Australia that might be watching this, of course, I'm happy to do consultations there. I do coaching and stuff internationally as well. I can't do international doctoring with my insurance; doesn't cover me outside of Australia. But coaching and keto coaching stuff like that, yeah, I can do.
Great stuff. Well, I'll have links in the description below for everything Dr. Suresh has and he just mentioned there. And thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Great story.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me on, Kerry.
Absolutely.